Welcome back to PI Time. This week, we will discuss renewing your inner commitment to loving yourself fully. Let me ask you, let's begin by inviting you into a quiet, honest moment with yourself. Not a dramatic moment, not a moment of fixing or forcing, just a moment of recognition. At some point in our lives, many of us realize that while we've committed to careers, families, healing paths, spiritual growth, and becoming better humans, the commitment to loving ourselves entirely has quietly slipped into the background. Not because we don't value it, not because we don't believe in it, but because self-love often becomes an idea we agree with rather than a practice we return to. Today's conversation is about renewing that commitment, not in a grand or performative way, but in a grounded, tender, deeply human way. By the end of our time together, listeners will understand how renewal transforms self-love from a concept into a lived reality. Something practiced, something that meets you in ordinary moments, difficult moments, and moments when you are unsure who you are becoming next. This is not about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about coming home to yourself again, with clarity, with compassion, with intention. Let's begin where renewal always begins, with awareness. There is a subtle moment that often precedes renewal. It's the moment you notice a pattern without immediately judging it. The moment you realize something here is asking for my attention. One person I once spoke with, named Althea, described this moment as a quiet discomfort she couldn't explain. From the outside, her life looked stable. She was dependable, caring, emotionally available to everyone around her. But internally, she felt like she was constantly managing herself, monitoring her reactions, editing her emotions, shrinking her needs so she wouldn't feel like a burden. Her challenge wasn't self-hatred. It was self-abandonment that had become so familiar it felt normal. What shifted things for Althea wasn't a crisis or a breakdown. It was a pause. A moment one evening when she canceled plans she actually wanted to attend, simply because she didn't have the energy to explain herself. She caught herself in that moment, not with criticism, but with curiosity. And that noticing became the doorway to renewal. Renewal does not begin with declarations. It begins with honesty. When people begin to see their patterns clearly, without urgency or blame, space opens for something new to emerge. You move from reacting to witnessing, and that witnessing in itself is an act of love. Once awareness settles in, the next movement is grounding. 'Cause seeing clearly can be unsettling. And without balance, awareness can turn into self-scrutiny instead of self-care. Grounding is the process of learning how to stay present with yourself when emotions surface. It is learning how to regulate without numbing, how to feel without being overwhelmed. Another person named Corvin shared a very different experience. Corvin had lived for years in a state of constant productivity. Achievement had become his language of worth. Rest felt unsafe. Slowing down felt like falling behind. When he first tried to practice self-love intentionally, he felt frustrated. He said, "I understand the idea, but I don't feel it in my body." What Corvin didn't realize was that his nervous system had never learned how to settle. Stillness felt unfamiliar. His body didn't yet trust rest. So instead of pushing himself to feel calm, he began practicing grounding through small physical acts, placing his feet on the floor when anxiety rose, breathing deliberately before responding instead of reacting, allowing silence to exist without immediately filling it. Over time, something softened, not because he forced it, but because he allowed his body to feel safe enough to slow down. Listeners, self-love cannot live in a system that feels constantly under threat. Renewal requires balance, not perfection. Balance. When internal steadiness begins to take root, perspective naturally shifts. Perspective is where meaning changes. It's where the same experience begins to tell a different story. Another person named Ismara illustrated this beautifully. Ismara carried a deep sense of personal failure for years. She had made choices earlier in her life that no longer aligned with who she had grown into. And no matter how much she evolved, she carried those memories like evidence against herself. For a long time, she believed self-love meant forgiving herself once and moving on. But forgiveness felt inaccessible, too heavy, too final. What changed was not forgiveness. It was understanding. She began to see her past self not as someone who deserved punishment, but as someone who was doing the best she could with the awareness and support she had at the time. This shift didn't excuse harm, didn't erase responsibility, simply replaced cruelty with context. Listeners, when perspective changes, compassion becomes possible. And compassion is not weakness. It is clarity without harshness. From this healthier understanding, healing can begin. Healing is not erasing what happened. It is restoring the connection that was lost. It is reclaiming parts of yourself that were silenced, dismissed, or neglected. Another person named Brunei offers a powerful example. Brunei spent most of her life prioritizing other people's emotional needs above her own. She believed love was proven through self-sacrifice. And while she was deeply generous, she was also deeply depleted. Her renewal began when she realized she didn't know what she needed unless someone else needed something first. Her inner world had been shaped around response, not choice. Healing for Brunei came through learning to ask herself simple questions. What do I feel right now? What would support me in this moment? What am I allowed to need? At first, these questions felt uncomfortable, even selfish. But over time, they became anchors. They brought her back to herself. Listeners, healing often looks like reclaiming your right to exist as a whole person, not just a helpful one. And from healing comes forward movement, not rushed, not forced, but intentional. Moving forward with renewed clarity means making choices that align with your values, not your fears. It means letting self-love inform your boundaries, your pace, and your priorities. This is where renewal becomes a lived practice. When you look at Althea, Corvin, Ismara, and Brunei, a common thread appears. None of them changed overnight. None of them became someone new. They became more honest, more grounded, more compassionate versions of who they already were. Renewal is not reinvention. It is a recommitment. It is choosing again and again to meet yourself with care instead of criticism, to respond instead of react, to stay present instead of abandoning yourself when things feel uncomfortable. As we begin to close, I want to weave these lessons together gently. Awareness allows you to see where love has faded into habit. Grounding allows you to stay present with what you see. Perspective allows you to understand yourself with truth and kindness. Healing allows you to restore what was neglected. And intentional movement allows you to carry self-love forward into daily life. This is the cycle of renewal. Quiet, powerful, ongoing. Before we part, I want to leave you with practical ways to integrate this into your own life. First, practice gentle noticing. Once a day, observe how you speak to yourself internally, not to correct it, just to hear it. Second, ground your body regularly. Place a hand on your chest. Breathe slowly. Let your body know it is safe to be here. Third, reframe with curiosity. When self-judgment arises, ask, what might be another way to understand this? Fourth, ask yourself what needs restoring. Energy, trust, rest, joy, and take one small step toward reclaiming it. Finally, move forward intentionally. Choose one boundary, one habit, or one moment each day where you act from self-respect rather than obligation. Listeners, renewing your commitment to love yourself fully does not require perfection. It requires presence. It requires honesty. And it requires the willingness to begin again. And you can begin again today, right where you are, with the person you already are. Thank you for sharing this space with me. And thank you once more for turning toward yourself with care. Now, before I end today's episode, I would like to invite you to read Becoming the Light, the newest book in the Positively Improved Inspirational series. If you are interested in learning more about this book or purchasing it, I encourage you to click the link in the show notes. And with that, on behalf of the whole Positively Improved team, thank you for joining us. We hope you wake up every day to pause, reflect, and reconnect with yourself. Till next week, namaste.